That plain teacup sitting behind the good china in your cabinet, the one you never actually use. It might be the most valuable thing in your kitchen. 10 teacups just like it have sold for hundreds of dollars. 2 of them sold for over $1,000. And here's the strange part. None of them look expensive. Here's what nobody tells you. Value never lives in what a teacup looks like. It lives in who made it, and whether anyone actually bothers to check. Not the flowers, not the colour, the mark on the bottom, and a story almost nobody takes the time to learn. Pick up any teacup in your house right now and turn it over. We're going to do exactly that 10 times before we're through. Let's find out what's sitting in your cabinet. Number 10. If your cup has a single delicate flower on it and the word azalea printed nowhere on the piece itself, your first thought is probably that it's just old grocery store china. Fair guess. Millions of these were given away free with coupons from tea and coffee companies in the early 1900s. Most of them are worth exactly what you'd expect. $10, maybe less. There's one detail that changes the number completely. It's not about the flower painting at all. It's about which piece you're holding. Most azalea cups and saucers are common, worth about $10 each. But a handful of shapes in this same pattern are genuinely rare. A divided relish dish, a small compote, a piece from a child's tea set. Those specific shapes have sold for $100 to $300, and a complete child's tea set has brought as much as $1,500. Turn the piece over. Look for the green wreath mark with the letter M inside it, and the number 19322 stamped nearby. That number confirms genuine azalea. Then check the shape itself, not just the mark. Most people check the mark and stop there, never noticing that the shape in their hands might be the rare part, not the flowers. Number 9. A cup with a plain, almost industrial-looking mark on the bottom, reading only Occupied Japan, makes most people assume it's cheap tourist china from a flea market bin. That assumption is usually right, and this is the one item on the list where I'm not going to pretend otherwise. The words Occupied Japan could only legally appear on export goods for 5 years, 1947 to 1952, under the American Occupation Authority. After that, the phrase disappeared from every mark forever. That narrow window is the only reason collectors care about these at all. A hand-painted floral teacup carrying that exact mark typically brings $30 to $40. It's not a fortune. It's real money for something most people throw straight into a donation box without a second look. Turn the cup over and read the mark word for word. That's the whole test. If it says Japan or Made in Japan, that's a different, far more common piece worth closer to nothing. Occupied Japan, spelled out in full, is the only phrase that counts. 5 years and nothing else decided what that cup is worth. Number 8. This is the mistake I watch happen more than almost any other. A rose pattern painted onto a plain white cup gets glanced at and instantly filed under generic. Fair enough. Moss rose is one of the most repeated patterns in China history. Dozens of makers across 2 centuries painted some version of it. That's exactly the trap. The pattern was never the valuable part. The maker was. A moss rose cup from an unmarked factory sells for about $12. The same pattern on a documented Coalport blank with the maker's mark intact sells closer to $85. Same flowers, same pink and green palette, 7 times the price, and the only difference is one small stamp on the bottom. Turn it over before you decide anything else. A rose pattern with no mark at all is almost never the valuable one. A rose pattern with a mark you don't recognize is worth 5 minutes of your time before you decide. Number 7. A cup with heavy hand-painted fruit, a signature so small it looks like a smudge, and gold banding worn soft at the rim gets treated like clutter more than treasure. Understandable. It looks fussy, dated, the kind of thing that lived behind glass and never touched a saucepan of hot water. That smudge has a name. Haviland Limoges employed individual painters who signed finished pieces with their own initials, and collectors chase specific names the way art collectors chase specific painters. A signed Haviland teacup, artist identified, has sold for $65. An unsigned piece in the same pattern brings closer to $8. Tilted under a lamp, hand-painted brushwork sits unevenly with tiny ridges where the brush lifted. A printed pattern lies dead flat. Ridges under lamplight mean a real hand, and sometimes a real name is hiding in that smudge. Number 6. An almost eggshell-thin cup, so pale it looks nearly translucent, gets dismissed as fragile and impractical, something you'd never trust a child near. That instinct isn't wrong. It is fragile. It's also the entire point. Belleek, the Irish porcelain house, built its reputation on exactly that thinness, and its mark changed in distinct eras. Black ink for the earliest pieces, made between 1863 and 1891, shifting to green in the decades after and later to gold. An early black mark Belleek teacup sold for $525. A modern gold mark piece in the identical shape sells for a fraction of that. Try this. Find the harp and tower mark on the base and note its colour. Black is the one worth stopping for. Most people never flip the cup far enough to see it, because who turns over something that looks like it might shatter? Number 5. A cup painted with a full layered arrangement, birds, fruit or blossoms, rendered almost like a tiny oil painting, tends to get treated as a display piece nobody actually values, just something pretty that came with an estate. This is the part most people miss completely. Royal Worcester employed named artists for its blush ivory line, and some of them signed their work directly onto the porcelain. A Royal Worcester teacup signed by a documented in-house artist sold for $890. The same shape and glaze unsigned brings closer to $70. That's not a small gap. That's the difference between clutter and a car payment. Your test. Look for tiny lettering tucked into the painted scene itself, not just the base mark. Painters sign their names directly into the artwork more often than people expect, in lettering small enough to miss if you're not looking for it. Most sellers never look past the flowers to find the name signed into them. Number 4. And this one is as much a warning as a treasure. Meissen. The crossed swords mark alone makes people's eyes light up, and forgers have known that for over 200 years. A real dealer looks at one thing before anything else. On a genuine piece, the crossed swords are crisp, confident, painted under the glaze by a trained hand. On fakes, the swords are often filed down afterward, blurred deliberately to make an altered mark harder to trace, or painted on top of the glaze instead of beneath it. Read the mark under strong light before you get excited about anything else on the cup. A verified Meissen teacup, mark intact and unaltered, sold for $1,200. A cup with a filed or over glaze mark is worth a fraction of that, no matter how fine the painting looks. The mark isn't decoration, it's the whole argument. Number 3. A small cup with raised, almost sculpted dots and swirls built up in slip before firing looks to most people like an odd craft project rather than fine china. That reaction makes sense. It looks handmade in the rough sense, not the valuable sense. That raised texture has a name too. It's called moriage, a slip-built decoration used on hand-finished Nippon porcelain, and pieces with dense, well-preserved moriage work are far rarer than the plain transfer printed cups from the same factories. A heavily moriage-decorated Nippon teacup has sold for $85. A plain printed Nippon cup from the same era sells for around $12. Run a fingertip lightly across the decoration. If you can feel raised texture rather than a flat printed surface, you're holding the rarer version. Most people feel that texture and assume it means damage, not craftsmanship. Number 2. And this is the one that costs people the most because the value was never in a single cup. It's in 3 pieces, not 2. A teacup and its matching saucer, on their own, are worth a fair amount. Add the original matching tea plate, the same pattern, the same glazeware, the same maker's mark, and you have what collectors call a trio. And a trio is worth meaningfully more than a cup and saucer alone, not just a little more. A documented matching trio in a mid-century pattern has sold for $185. The same cup and saucer, missing their plate, brought closer to $65. Somebody, somewhere, kept the pretty cup, used the plate for toast every morning until it chipped and quietly cut the value by 3/4 without ever knowing it. Check every cabinet and drawer for a small plate that matches. It's worth more sitting next to its cup than anywhere else in the house. Number 1. And it's almost certainly a pattern you can picture without looking, because it might be the most reproduced design in the history of China. Blue willow. The pagoda, the bridge, the 2 birds crossing a blue and white landscape. Your grandmother had a set, so did half of America. That familiarity is exactly why most people are right to assume theirs is worth almost nothing. A modern blue willow teacup is worth $10, maybe $15, because more than 100 million pieces have been made since the pattern was first copied from Chinese export porcelain in the late 1700s. And this is where it turns. The earliest hand-transferred pieces, made by houses like Spode and Copeland before machine printing took over the pattern entirely, carry a distinctly heavier, more saturated cobalt and a mark that predates the 20th century. One of those early pieces, authenticated and dated, has sold for $1,400. Same bridge, same birds. A pattern so common that almost nobody bothers to check whether their exact cup came first. Turn it over one more time. If the mark predates the 20th century instead of matching a modern factory stamp, that one detail might be the only thing standing between a $10 cup and a $1,400 one. Every single cup on this list came down to the same thing. Not the flowers, not the colour, the mark on the bottom, and whether you were willing to actually check it before deciding a plain teacup was just a plain teacup. 10 of these have paid out real money to people who almost donated them without a second look. So before you clear out a single shelf, pick each cup up one more time and turn it over. Believe what the mark tells you, not what the pattern tells you. If this made you want to walk to your cabinet right now, do one small thing and like the video. It tells me to keep making these. And if you're not subscribed yet, that's where the next one lives, the one where we do exactly this for the silverware sitting in the same drawer. Tell me in the comments what's the oldest teacup in your house and who did it belong to. I read every single one, and half the value is always in that story. One last thing. Don't sell a single cup before you read the bottom. Number 1 might already be in your kitchen.